Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We always want to start these classes letting everyone know that we are not diagnosing anything, we are not prescribing anything, we are not treating or curing any diseases or issues. We are just offering natural ways to support the body and help you deal with things that may be going on. Kate is going to start off with a little bit of our perspective on natural methods of dealing with some of the things we're going to talk about versus some of the maybe more conventional ways to do that.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so quick disclaimer, I'm just going to add this. It has been a crazy day. I have my notes and I think they're in order, so just bear with me. Okay, so in running this class, Jana and we've talked a lot, and today I was like refreshing my mind and actually, hang on just a second. I'm going to move myself so I'm not like staring off over there. Okay. And I was hit with like a ton of bricks of passion, just that like a fire was relit underneath of why and how our story has evolved. And I can now look back for our particular, like my whole entire life. So a little bit of background, I was raised in a very medicalized family. My mother is an RN, and I also have an engineer as a father. So we were very black and white. You did what you were told. You never asked questions. And then I came along and asked all the questions. But I'm trying to make sure that I don't like get on my soapbox, but there are so many things that we have been conditioned to believe that there's only one way to take care of our bodies and our systems. And growing up in a family that was very highly medicalized, I so much respect and love the heart and the heartbeat of most nurses, doctors, physicians, those who care to help people get better, to heal emotionally, physically, mentally, like even when you need to sew together, skin, like all of the many, many beautiful things that modern medicine has given us. When you start to look into the history of how CBD and natural remedies, natural holistic remedies were kind of taken out of the equation when it came to the modern healthcare system. And this is not at all to attack anyone. It's just simply to provide information and to show the amazing system that Jana's going to talk about a little bit later that we have not been taught about, that truly gave the science to back up what we as practitioners before modern medicine came into the picture, what they were able to do. They just didn't have the science to back up behind it. And so from my experience, I watched as my mother would struggle to take care of people, making sure that she was meeting guidelines, that she was, it had to be this prescription or this, particular interaction. It was like they were always trying to solve whatever reaction was coming up instead of getting to the root cause of the problem. And I watched that frustration. My parents, when I was 8 to 10 years old, they opened a home health agency. So the bulk of their patients were elderly. And I don't know if they know this, but I remember even as a child watching them just struggle with how can we best support, like there has to be a better way. They just didn't have the information. Now, fast forward where now I have my family of my own and I have been introduced to the holistic realm of all these, amazing things like oils, and CBD was something that I wasn't 100% scientific. Like I didn't have all the information at first, but intuitively I knew, hey, there's something here. I'm going to get a little bit on later to describe, just walk you guys through some of the testimonies our own family has witnessed from that. But one of the things that just struck me while I was looking at some things to refresh for this class tonight was that it was fascinating to me. There was a study that was done among doctors and that treated cancer patients. And what they did is they surveyed these doctors and they asked them what percent, or they didn't ask what percentage, but they asked these doctors, how many of you prescribe medical marijuana, CBD, THC, to your patients, cancer patients? I'm not going to give you the percentage yet because I think it's like a very huge shocker. So they asked that question. And the next question that they asked them was, how confident are you explaining to your patients what CBD, THC does for whatever it was that they were looking to, heal or support or come alongside in their care. 30% of doctors were confident in their ability to be able to discuss with their patients, which, side note, that's called informed consent. They felt confident. Do you want to know how many a percentage of those doctors prescribed? 50. So you have 20% of doctors who are not confident in prescribing something that they're not sure how it works. They aren't 100% sure. Like, and again, science does take a while to be able to confirm certain things. There is an importance in making sure that you have that scientific data to prove. But it broke my heart when I thought, because I believe most doctors intentionally deep down want to help people, but how sad is it that they weren't empowered enough to be able to have that conversation with their patients? So I could talk about this all day, and I'm going to try really hard not to like railroad and just go down all of the things. But in all of that, while I was reading and watching today and just refreshing, it was just fascinating to me that there is a whole system that most of society that we're not taught about in school, that we're not taught about when you go to med school, that it's not something that's discussed, that we are just now starting to learn about. Mm-hmm. And it's like unlocked the key to so many powerful things to be able to support us in our health and in our families. So before I like take over Jana's part, I'm going to pass it over to her, and she's going to tell you all about the, I'm going to say it wrong, endocannabinoid system. Like, my daughter is 9, or about to be 9, and she was listening to me listen to the stuff. She's like, what did they say? And so I was telling her, like, we have all these systems in our body, the blood system, our vascular system, our bones, our muscles, our nervous system, the endocannabinoid system. Now, Jenna, you take it over and you explain that wonderful, wonderful system that we love so much.
So I can back this up. I'm a nurse practitioner. I never learned about the endocannabinoid system in school. We are taught that your neurologic system runs the show. And the endocannabinoid system really controls our nervous system. So it deals with your neurotransmitters in your body. So there are what are called endogenous cannabinoids, like your body makes its own cannabinoids. There are cannabinoids in breast milk. So moms are making cannabinoids and the babies are eating them, yay. And then your own body produces cannabinoids that help you regulate your body. The main function of cannabinoids is to maintain homeostasis, so to keep you in balance. For me personally, it's emotional balance that's the most important. But for other people, it can be, neurologic balance, musculoskeletal balance, whatever it may be. Those receptors are throughout your body. They're all throughout your brain, in different parts of your brain. So controlling things like appetite, your balance, your memory, your emotions, all of those things are controlled by the endocannabinoid system. There are CB1 and CB2 receptors. I don't expect anybody to worry about that, but the CB1 are mostly in your brain and CB2 are mostly in your immune system. So the endocannabinoid system also controls your immune system. And this is not something that I didn't know this until just a few months ago. Like, what? This just was all completely new information for me. And it's just not something that we're ever taught in school. So I've become really passionate about it once I realized what this system does in your body. There have been lots of studies on cannabinoids, but up until very recently, they have lumped all cannabinoids together because of regulations and laws. It's hard to, it's very difficult to say, hey, you two, let's go smoke marijuana and we'll talk about it and see how you feel. Because it's illegal. It's a Schedule I drug. And up until very recently, CBD was also a Schedule I drug. And that means that there are no medical benefits for it, which we all know is not true. And I'm not in any way promoting the legalization of marijuana, so let's not go there. I'm not a fan of THC. I don't believe in psychotropic drugs. I do believe in using the plants that God made and put on this earth to support our bodies the way he intended them to. So I'm just going to run down some studies for you guys. I'm a note taker. So I just wrote some things down so I can make sure I don't forget anything or skip over important numbers. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what they have found in the endocannabinoid system and how those receptors work, and then the particular studies. So the molecules of either THC, CBD, whatever it might be, there are 450 separate cannabinoid molecules, and we know the most about two of them, THC and CBD. And they fit like a key in those receptors that we talked about in the brain, throughout the body, the immune system, and they don't act on the receptor, they help the body regulate its own neurotransmitters. So it helps the body release the neurotransmitters it needs to, or reuptake the ones that there are too much of, or leave out the ones in the synapse between the neurons to let them do their work a little bit longer. So that's how these all work. And the studies that have been done, they found that cannabinoids of all kinds helped with the GI system, the regulation of your emotions, inflammation throughout the body. They can help the body change its perception of pain. There was a 12,000 participant, that's a pretty big study, dealing with emotional regulation. And they actually gave them varying amounts of THC and CBD, and found that the more CBD they received and less THC, they actually showed better emotional regulation versus the other way around. So I do want to make sure people understand that THC can actually make depression and anxiety worse. And THC is the psychoactive component of marijuana. So I really don't want people to take this and go out and do drugs. No, don't do that. But CBD is not psychoactive, but it still can help your body unlock these receptors and appropriately use its own neurotransmitters. Also of note, the women in this study had a better and more powerful result than the men. There's not an explanation for that right now. My perception was probably that the women were experiencing a greater level of anxiety or depression or whatever it was, whatever their emotional regulation issue was, and that they either perceived it more at a higher level, or they either started that way, but either way, they showed a better result than the men did, which is, I thought, really interesting. There have been small studies that found that cannabinoids helped with the improvement of sleep. So people had more REM sleep, which is that restorative dreaming sleep. So we all know how important that is for your health. And that it could also, we've talked a little bit about the neurotransmitters being released. It helps your body release those feel-good neurotransmitters. And if you've heard of the runner's high, we always attribute that to endorphin. And it's actually anandamide, which is an endocannabinoid. So like, oh, I might go run around the block. I'm not a runner, but I'll think about it. It sounds like it might be helpful. And then those feel-good neurotransmitters can actually help your body's perception of pain. So it may not decrease your pain, but it can help you feel better. And if you've ever had an injury during maybe a sports event, or I remember on drill team, we were in a pep rally and I was doing a routine and I pulled my hamstring and I didn't feel any pain at all until I walked off the gym floor when the performance was over, and then I realized I was in pain. But I had such a rush of these neurotransmitters when I was performing that I didn't even notice that I was hurt. So it's a similar thing. They also have done studies about the different ways to use cannabinoids, and found that if you use them topically, so on your skin, that it would only penetrate the first few layers of skin. So even if it contained THC, it still would not be psychoactive. which I thought was really interesting. It makes me, as a lactation consultant, a nurse practitioner, I deal with moms and babies. It makes me more comfortable discussing with them ways to use CBD muscle rubs or a topical oil, because I'm confident that it's not going to get into their breast milk. They also have done some studies in that vein of topical use, and found that people had relief from skin irritations, and when they needed skin support, that it was helpful with that. And also found that if you combine a cooling or warming agent, something like an icy hot or the CBD muscle rub, with a cannabinoid and applied it topically, that warming or cooling combined with the CBD provided an immediate help for that discomfort, and then gave an extended relief as that CBD worked. So you have the immediate cooling or warming feeling that helps immediately, and then you get that longer acting CBD. They also have found, not just in CBD studies, but that if there is an area of local inflammation in the body of any kind, that those chemicals that are involved in inflammation in the body can become systemic and cross the blood-brain the blood-brain barrier. Say that 10 times fast. And inflammation in the brain is a contributor to things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, all those sorts of things. So anything that we can do to support the body and prevent that from happening at the local level is a good thing. And I have a couple more. One thing that's been really big, the FDA has approved a CBD-based prescription already. And it started with a little girl. I think she was 5 at the time. I feel like she's about 9 or 10 now. And she was having 300 to 500 seizures a week, and had failed all sorts of prescription drugs and therapies. And she was given a cannabinoid and had very good improvement. And it's actually been FDA approved now. So it is called Epidiol, I believe. I may be mispronouncing that, but it's been on the market for a while now. So I feel like even the FDA is realizing that there is something else available for a variety of things, which is very encouraging. And with all of that information, there are a lot of decisions that people need to make when thinking about trying CBD. If they do want to, where should they get it? What should they look at as, qualifier for their choices? So Kate's going to talk a little bit about
that. Okay. I'm trying to make sure that baby's not crying in the other room, because I heard it and it was my husband playing a game. Okay. So I kind of want to piggyback a little bit on the study parts and exactly how the endocannabinoid system. So scientists also have discovered that there are systems with that system within our body that are solely dependent on the interaction with cannabinoids. Thank you. And these systems are part of vital functions in our body. So that was, to me, like when I read that, it was like, okay, that clicked, that makes sense. So basically our bodies were designed to work with cannabinoids, so they can be essential to, try this again. And then they can even be considered as essential to our overall health and wellness, because we want our body to remain in homeostasis. Did I say that right? Okay. Like I said, I was raised by a nurse and an engineer, but I'm the creative, like, free spirit, but I can't pronounce or spell anything. So you guys are gonna have to bear with me on that one. So if you don't know what homeostasis is, it's the general sense that it refers to the stability or the balance of, the balance in a system. And it's the body's attempt to remain in that constant internal environment. So you're essentially making sure that your body's functioning the way that it was created to. So one of the reasons, and we want to make sure that when we are talking about CBD here and we're talking about essential oils, we are solely talking about Young Living and Nature's Ultra. The reason why is, one, we love them. And the second reason is because of their seed to seal promise and how the CBD is actually harvested and how it is created. The process in which it goes through, like she talked about with the THC. So My husband, his job, they can have random drug tests like most companies do. And so they actually, this is crazy. Like within the last 3 months, they had a huge meeting where they sat everyone down and they said, hey, look, we know that some of you are using CBD or you could possibly be using THC, but just to let you know that if you have any THC, it can come back as showing that you are high and you will lose your job. There was no question asked policy. And so he got really like, he was like, oh crap, because we have these products that are home. And I actually have him use the muscle rub like on my neck to rub it in. He's like, what if he was freaking out. And I was so encouraged to be able to tell him is that Nature's Ultra uses 0 THC. They use a CBD isolate. And one of the other reasons why I love this is because in the distillation process and how they create, and I'm not a scientist, I am just trying my best to explain this in very like mommy terms because I have to do it before kids. When we add the oils back into the CBD, what that does is that it adds in the, oh my gosh, I cannot talk. I'm trying to talk too fast. It adds in the terpines. Good Lord. Thank you. Okay. So essential oils have a bioavailability that work with our body synergistically, and they are adaptogenic. Really big words. Basically all that means, or what that implies is that essential oils, because they are the lifeblood of the plant, are able to work within our body into where our bodies are how they were created, and they're adaptive to what our body uniquely needs, which I think is just like, oh my gosh, crazy. Really cool though. So most people do not naturally produce enough endocannabinoids, and then this may be due to toxins, diet, stress. None of us have any issues with that, right? None at all. You're lying if you say you don't. So, and it can also be a combination of all those things. So I actually have the CBD sitting right here, or some of them. This is the roller I've like slathered on. This is the citrus, and this is the cool mint. So Smart Spectrum CBD is what this is. It is an isolate, and it's the pure seed to seal verified. So that means that the same standard that we hold, that Young Living holds with their essential oils, is the same standard that Nature's Ultra has with their products. So that's to ensure that there's no THC and that it's a controlled purity. Plus, you add in the Young Living essential oils that they add in, the terpenines. Oh my gosh, you guys are just going to have to bear with me. That's what I mean. From the essential oils can increase the efficacy of the product, which makes it into a smart spectrum, which I love when I understand how that stuff works. So because it's 0% THC and it's paired with Young Living all essential oils, it means that all of the ingredients are natural, organic, vegan, and gluten-free, which I think checks everybody's box, right? The cultivation, and this was the thing that was just fascinating to me. And if you've ever been to one of our essential oil classes, you understand the seed to seal, what that means. Like we can go onto the farm, we can look, we can see how the plants are being harvested, how they're distilled, the testing that they go through. It is incredible, like mind blowing. The same standards are applied to CBD from Nature's Ultra. They are committing, and they make that commitment to you that they are making sure that they are taking care of, that there's sustainability, which is so incredible. So the purity, the potency, there's no pesticides, there's no heavy metals, which I'm just going to say, and I can say this because I've talked with my chiropractor about this. He was selling a CBD oil that had none of this guarantee. And when he was testing it, there were heavy metals in the CBD and there was THC, even though it said on the label that there was no THC. So this is why it is so important to know and feel comfortable and ask all of the questions, and why we're giving you this class and all of this information so that you can feel empowered to know that this is an incredible product. There are no solvents, so that means that there's nothing that's added in during the manufacturing process. And I wanted to just kind of touch on why, again, we add those essential oils back in. So the terpenes that are found, oh my gosh, I said it wrong again. It's okay. Found in essential oils can increase the overall spectrum of the product. So it makes it even more just bioavailable and adaptogenic to your body, which is so cool. I'm going to geek out here so you guys just follow me along, and hopefully this makes sense. So because they can pass through the cell membranes quickly, they can communicate with the nerves, they can support your muscles and translate with neurotransmitter receptors and all of the enzymes and all of these things. Like, it's just fascinating. So you talked about the anti-inflammatory, like how it can help with the anti-inflammatory as well. And then we had a class a couple of weeks ago about emotions, and I used this visual, and I think this is so important, and this helped to make it make a little bit more sense. So you have the receptor sites, whereas are essentially the door to your cell where the DNA is stored. And when those receptor sites get damaged, and they get damaged from the toxins and the overload and the stress and everything that we put ourselves through that we're not taking care of ourselves, and that gets damaged. So when the CBD is able to act as that key to unlock the cell, it's so cool that it is partnered with essential oils, because the essential oils help clean that receptor site so it can work more efficiently, which just like is again, crazy to me. So when you're able to, okay, before I get into that a little bit more, with hemp. So the hemp that we're using for the CBD, they are farmed in Colorado. They are the leaders, the farms that our CBD comes from, that the hemp comes from. They are the leaders in the industry for growing high quality crops. They have over 1,500 acres of cultivating using organic and sustainable farming practices. The excess plant material is not thrown in the trash. It is redistributed into the soil, which means that that soil is getting even more of that wonderful, like, it's not getting stripped of the chemical constituents. Oh my gosh, I'm doing a terrible job of pronouncing things. We're giving back to the earth so it can continue to create, which is just, again, it's incredible when you realize that we're not wasteful with this. So it's also dried in the natural sun instead of artificial light. And if you know anything about the importance of making sure that you're getting good vitamin D from the sun, and what your bodies go through when they are exposed to artificial light all of the time, it's not good. Our bodies are not meant to thrive that way, and either are plants. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. So whenever we talk about our cells, your cells are like your brain, and they have a memory, and you have the power to make those memories good or bad. And again, this is I'm kind of pulling from another class, but I think it's important to this. The nucleus inside the cell is the thinker, and it tells the cell what to be able to do. And when it's damaged from these toxins and these overloads and the stress that we're constantly put through, it's difficult to recreate that. It's difficult to heal that. And like we said, the CBD is able to unlock the cell so it can do what it was created to do. So, where was I going? Oh, so when we were talking about emotions, there are certain oils that have certain properties. They are high in phenols or sesquiterpenes. Did I say that one right? And monoterpenes. And I actually just put all of this down. So in the cool mint and the cinnamon CBD, those are high in phenols, which are cinnamon bark and peppermint. And those are what clean those receptor sites to help the overall function, which is really cool because the citrus and the cinnamon are marketed. I honestly use them for interchangeably, but they're marketed for calming and keeping the body well, which I just think is really cool. And then for the sesquiterpenes, good Lord, I'm having issues. Those help the amygdala, remember that's the emotional processing center of the brain, to work as it's supposed to and help release all of those stored emotional blocks, which is, again, really cool fun fact. And oils that are high in sesquiterpenes, vetiver, frankincense, and lavender. Guys, that's all in this calm roller. Like it's for your emotions. Like there's not a mistake in the oils that they chose to help your body function the way that it was created. And my last part before I pass it back over is about the monoterpenes, which are the citrus happy oils. Their job is to reprogram the missing DNA and the improper coding from all of the stress and toxins that we constantly come into contact with to help heal. So again, we can work more efficiently in the way that we were created. I'm a science nerd and junkie. I think that's just so really, 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 really cool. I am going to pass it to Janet, who's going to talk about dosing, because this is important. We want to know how to get into our bodies and the best way to do that.
Yeah. And I do want to piggyback on her comments about the farming practices, because the hemp plant in particular is, I think of it like a scrub brush. It sucks up the toxins in the soil. So if hemp is being farmed in conventional practices with pesticides and fertilizers that are toxic, that hemp is sucking up all of those chemicals from the soil. And then if we use it in any form, we are being exposed then to all of those chemicals. So you have to be really careful about where you get your CBD from. And then another thing, in all the studies that I read, there was one that looked at, I believe it was about 80 or 90 different brands of CBD, and 70% of them were mislabeled. That could be they stated they had THC of a certain amount and didn't, or had none, or for me, more importantly, stated they had no THC and they did contain it. So if you're a healthcare professional or some other professional that has random drug testing in your job, you could conceivably lose your job for taking the wrong brand of CBD because it contained THC, whether you knew it or not. So just something to think about. And then as far as dosing goes with CBD, you want to remember to start low and go slow. So the droppers, I start with literally 2 drops. It's very potent, and you don't want to take more than you need. So take 2 drops, start low, see if you get an effect. If you don't, you can keep going up gradually until you get the desired effect. And then you really want to make sure that you don't just like take a whole bottle of CBD. Although I walk around with a roller all the time, like painting it on everything. And you always want to discuss with your healthcare provider, your nurse practitioner, PA, physician, whatever it may be, about your use of CBD and any other health conditions you may have that are of concern, or prescriptions that you're taking that may be an interaction that they are concerned with. And I think we are going to talk about testimonials now. My phone went dark with my list of things. Yes. So my personal testimony, and we have 7 minutes before we get the boot. So I have been using essential oils for probably over 6 years now. And I started using them as a way to get non-toxic products. I got rid of candles and plugins and all those sorts of things in my home, took care of the cleaners and all of that. And then I really started realizing I needed emotional support. We were going through some infertility and miscarriage issues, and then trouble with staying pregnant. And then after I had the babies, I struggled with some emotional regulation after each baby was born. But I didn't want to take a prescription for that because a lot of that can pass into your milk, and I didn't like the way it made me feel. And so I started using oils for that purpose. And it helped, but I knew I needed something else. And I had always been kind of skeptical of CBD, and especially knowing that a lot of them are mislabeled. Even before Young Living came out with one, I didn't want to do it because I didn't trust that they would be pure. And I certainly didn't want to take something with THC in it and then have my babies be exposed to that or lose my job. So Young Living came out with CBD within the last year, and I did a mountain of research on this before trying it for myself. And that was the missing piece for my stress levels, my emotional regulation. I can tell my interactions with my kids are different on the days that I do or do not use my Calm Roller. I now carry one in my work bag, in my diaper bag. I have one in the bathroom on the counter, so I use it when I get out of the shower in the morning. And it just helps me stay balanced, just like the endocannabinoid system is supposed to do. So it has made a huge difference for me personally, just with a feeling of wellness and calm. And that's been huge.
How much time do I have?
4 minutes.
Okay, you guys, you're going to see me talk like so fast, the fastest you've ever heard me talk. So the Calm Roller is something that has literally changed. It's like when I was first introduced to Young Living with Valor. This is the equivalent, in my opinion, of Valor in the CBD line. So I have 4 children, and my 3-year-old has an extremely difficult, well, actually my 6 and 3-year-old have very difficult time regulating their emotions, like so difficult. And we have used oils, and I noticed that we were kind of missing a piece of the puzzle. My chiropractor actually had some CBD that he believed was pure. And before he got his testing back, and he was like, I know you're really struggling. Why don't we try it and see what happens? And we tried it, and it was not a good experience. And I was very, very hesitant to be able to try anything else with my boys. So I, of course, like a mother, I tried it first, and it was a game changer. I was finally able to take those deeper breaths in conjunction with my oils use, in conjunction with making sure that I was, very, very like aware of making sure that I was taking care of myself. So I used this, and then I was desperate one day when my 3-year-old was just like, we had used Valor, and he was okay, but I could tell he just needed something else. And I grabbed the calm roller, and I did one swipe down the back of his neck. And within about 3 minutes, he it was like a different kid. And it was, I'm going to cry. He came up to me and he goes, "Thank you, mommy." And that, to me, to be able to provide my kids with tools that can help them, even if, yes, we want to make sure that we are remaining wise and remaining compliant, and making sure that you guys understand that we are presenting the information that we currently have. There is more scientific studies that need to happen, but I don't think that means that we need to discredit the people's stories. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. So yes, we want to make sure that you guys are talking with your care provider. We're not giving you medical advice, but I wanted to share that in hopes that listen to your intuition, because again, when that endocannabinoid system is activated and it starts firing the way that God intended it to, the way that our bodies were created, there is such an incredible transformation that happens. I'm probably done with time, so I'm going to close this out really fast and just say thank you so much for joining us. If you have questions, reach out to whoever sent this link to you. We are more than happy to provide more information. If you want studies, if you want links, whatever you need, if you need help, we're here. Yes, we got a ton of it. And I'm so glad and so grateful for you all joining us. Thank you so much, Jana, for hosting this. And you guys, get you some CBD from Young Living. We got you. Did I get it?
Bye, guys.
Bye.